Ladies and gentlemen, the most powerful way to destroy a toxic man isn't by fighting him, it's by confusing him. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with silence, growth, and emotional detachment. When he expects chaos, give him calm. When he expects tears, give him indifference. And when he expects the old version of you, show him a woman he can no longer recognize. This isn't about payback. Toxic individuals often thrive on control, especially emotional control. They don't just want attention, they crave your reaction. Every time you lose your cool, you hand them the power they desperately seek. When you get angry, they feel validated. When you cry, they feel victorious. The real power lies not in confrontation, but in composure. Choosing not to react isn't weakness, it's strategy. It sends a signal they can't decode, because they expect chaos, not calm. The silence unsettles them. Your peace becomes louder than their manipulation, and suddenly, they're no longer in charge. Staying calm in the face of toxicity is not about suppressing your feelings, it's about owning them. It's understanding that you don't owe anyone an emotional performance. When you refuse to give them the drama they crave, you starve their ego. They begin to question their own tactics. You're not playing the same game anymore. Your responses are measured, deliberate, and cold like steel. This emotional detachment creates confusion. They no longer know what button to press. And that unknown, it terrifies them more than confrontation ever could. Every toxic person has a playbook. They test boundaries, push buttons, and gauge reactions. They want to see you flinch, panic, beg, or explode. That's how they win. They make you react emotionally, so they can label you as unstable or overly sensitive. But when you remain calm, you refuse to be cast in their narrative. You don't defend, you don't justify. You observe. This observation mode is where you take your power back. Because while they're busy trying to stir your emotions, you are already writing your exit strategy. You become unpredictable, unreadable. Emotional control is like a suit of armor. Not because it hides your vulnerability, but because it makes your vulnerability sacred. Not everyone deserves access to your emotional world, especially not someone who weaponizes it. The moment you stop giving them that access, the game changes. They're confused, irritated, maybe even enraged, but most of all, powerless. You've stopped feeding the fire. You've turned off the supply. And suddenly they're left grappling with a version of you they never anticipated. Calm, composed, and unbothered. You must remember that emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you choose when and how to express it. There is power in pausing before responding. There is dominance in speaking slowly when provoked. There is mastery in walking away when they expect you to break. It's not about pretending to be strong. It's about becoming so deeply centered in your own worth that nothing shakes you. You no longer seek their approval, nor are you affected by their criticism. That steadiness, it's magnetic. It draws strength to you and drives toxicity away. When someone tries to provoke you, they're not looking for a solution. They're looking for control. They want to anchor you in an emotional storm, so you forget your worth. But when you refuse to drown, when you stand like a rock amidst the waves, they start questioning their influence. You're not rising to the bait. You're not playing their mind games. This restraint disorients them. They throw more bait, try harder, act louder. But you've already seen through the act. And now, they're dancing alone, in a performance you no longer attend. The greatest confusion you can cause is peace. A toxic person expects drama, arguments, shouting matches. They expect emotional chaos because that's where they thrive. So when you greet their aggression with silence, their manipulation with stillness, and their mind games with indifference, they're thrown off balance. They can't read you. They can't trap you. And in that disorientation, their grip weakens. You're not engaging in the fight. You're walking away from the arena. That's not surrender. That's the most strategic victory of all. Detaching emotionally doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself more. You no longer allow someone else's dysfunction to dictate your peace. That psychological boundary is impenetrable. Toxic people don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch. They rely on reaction to feel powerful. So when you respond with calm logic, or better yet, no response at all, they spiral. Their tricks fail. Their energy rebounds back to them. And in that moment, you're no longer their victim, you're their lesson. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Indifference is the ultimate power move in the face of toxicity. It tells them, you no longer matter enough to disturb my peace. That's what truly confuses them. Not anger, not revenge, but the absence of emotional availability. You've reclaimed your energy. You're no longer dancing to their rhythm. You set your own tone, and it's not one they can follow. That self-possession shines like armor. It protects, it empowers, and above all, it frees you. So the next time you face someone toxic, remember this. The trick isn't to fight harder. It's to stop playing their game. Let your calm be your strength. Let your silence be your statement. Let your emotional control be the lock they can't pick. They may try harder, act louder, push further, but your peace is not for sale. That confusion you create, it's not just a tactic. It's a revolution. Because when you stop reacting, you start rising. And nothing confuses a toxic person more than a soul that's finally free. Toxic people are often creatures of habit. They rely on patterns, predictable responses, familiar emotional reactions, and repeated behaviors. When they act cold, they expect warmth. When they lie, they expect forgiveness. When they ignore, they expect chasing. These manipulative cycles only work because you've played your part before. But the moment you start mirroring their behavior, not to hurt them, but to show them their own reflection, you disrupt their rhythm. You're no longer the one adjusting. You're holding up a mirror and letting them see themselves. That realization is uncomfortable, it's unexpected, and it shakes their illusion of control. Mirroring doesn't mean becoming like them. It means stepping back and giving them a taste of their own methods. If they go silent, you go silent. If they withdraw affection, you stop giving yours unconditionally. If they manipulate through distance, you respond with space, not desperation. This subtle reversal of energy leaves them confused. It's not vengeance, it's redirection. Suddenly, they're the ones feeling ignored, uncertain, insecure. They begin to wonder what's changed, why the dynamic feels unfamiliar. That discomfort is the beginning of their unraveling. Because they're no longer getting what they came for, your reaction. When a toxic person realizes their usual tactics no longer work, they panic. They may try harder, push stronger, or even play the victim. But deep down, they're unsettled. Your lack of response forces them to confront their own behavior. They no longer have the upper hand. The silence becomes deafening. The lack of engagement becomes powerful. And in that power shift, you begin to regain what they once stole. Your emotional freedom. By not feeding the cycle, you break the cycle. And when they look for the old version of you, they find someone they can no longer control. As they squirm in confusion, you remain grounded. That's what mirroring really is. A shield, not a weapon. You're not trying to hurt them. You're simply no longer willing to hurt yourself. It's not about giving them a taste of pain. It's about showing them the weight of their own actions. When you stop chasing and start reflecting, they're forced to face the emptiness of their games. You become the reminder that every action has a mirror, that every cold shoulder creates a cold world. And in that cold, they finally understand what you've endured silently for so long. The beauty of this psychological trick lies in its simplicity. No drama, no confrontation, no long explanations, just a shift in energy. You begin to operate on their frequency, only long enough for them to see how it feels. You reflect their patterns like a mirror. Clear, emotionless, unapologetic. And then once they're disoriented, you detach. That detachment is the final move. It's not cruel, it's clarity. You've played your part with grace. You've shown them their reflection. And now you walk away. Not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Detachment isn't silence with resentment, it's silence with peace. You've accepted that you can't change them, so you change your response. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop begging to be heard. You stop trying to make them see your worth. Because now, your energy is no longer invested in proving. It's invested in protecting. You protect your mind, your time, your peace. You let their chaos spin without dragging you in. And while they spiral trying to re-establish dominance, you rise, untouched by the storm they created. The power in walking away isn't just in leaving the person, it's in leaving the pattern. You stop being the healer of someone who doesn't want to be healed. You stop being the emotional sponge for someone who refuses to grow. That's where your liberation begins. When you mirror, they see themselves. When you detach, they lose access. That double blow, truth and distance, becomes a lesson they never expected. And though they may never admit it, they'll remember it. Because you left without shouting. You left with dignity. And that confuses them more than any outburst ever could. There will be moments when they try to re-enter your life. They may come with apologies, promises, or guilt. But the mirror has done its job. You've seen the pattern clearly now. You know their game. And more importantly, you know your worth. So you won't be swayed by empty words or temporary changes. You won't open doors that lead to familiar pain. Because once you've tasted peace, chaos no longer feels like home. And once you've reclaimed your power, manipulation can no longer disguise itself as love. This psychological shift rewires not just your relationship with them, but with yourself. You learn that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't keep love out, they keep toxicity from creeping in. And by mirroring, you build awareness. You begin to recognize red flags before they wrap themselves in charm. You no longer chase after apologies. You no longer seek closure. Because you found something far more valuable: self-respect. And self-respect doesn't argue with confusion. It simply exits with grace and never looks back. So when dealing with a toxic person, don't fight fire with fire. Fight it with reflection. Let them see themselves in your absence, your silence, your restraint. Let them sit in the discomfort of being unimportant to someone they thought they owned. That's how you confuse them, not with rage, but with self-possession. And that confusion, it's not cruelty, it's justice. Because you didn't destroy them, you just stopped destroying yourself. And in doing so, you became the one thing they never anticipated: untouchable. The most powerful way to confuse a toxic person is to evolve beyond their reach. While they cling to games and manipulation, you choose growth. That shift alone is something they can't process, because they expect you to stay stuck in the version of yourself they controlled. When you rise emotionally, spiritually, or professionally, You send a silent message. You no longer live in their world. You've outgrown the drama, the cycles, and the emotional hooks. What used to trigger you no longer touches you. What once hurt now teaches. Your focus is no longer on proving your worth. It's on building it. That transition is their confusion. A toxic person expects to be the center of your attention. They expect your world to revolve around their moods, their validation, and their chaos. But when you redirect that energy into your goals, dreams, and self-care, you disrupt their illusion. You're no longer showing up to fix them, to chase them, to hold space for their wounds while ignoring your own. You're building something that doesn't include them. And the more you grow, the more distant their influence becomes. They can't follow you into purpose because their power depends on your confusion, not your clarity. And once you're clear, they're invisible. Personal evolution isn't about revenge. It's about redirection. It's waking up one day and realizing that healing is more important than closure, that success is more satisfying than being understood by someone who never listened, that inner peace is louder than any argument you used to beg to win. Growth is the space between your old triggers and your new standards. When you evolve, you don't just confuse the toxic person, you disarm them. They try to provoke, but the spark is gone. They try to bait, but you no longer bite. You've become someone they can't recognize, much less control. Toxic people often believe they've defined you. They reduce you to your worst moment, your weakest reaction, your most vulnerable truth. They think they know you, own a piece of your identity. But when you start to grow, you rewrite that definition. You show them, and more importantly, yourself, that you were never who they said you were. You're not the broken one. You're not the needy one. You're not the overly sensitive one. You're a work in progress, but you're moving forward. That alone leaves them speechless, because they counted on your stagnation, and now all they see is elevation. The most confusing thing you can ever become to a toxic person is indifferent. Not hateful, not bitter, indifferent. When you grow, you stop needing closure from people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop waiting for apologies that will never come. You don't forgive because they ask. You forgive because your future needs space. You don't seek revenge. You seek alignment. And in that place of emotional sovereignty, they lose their grip. They are no longer your source of pain or validation. They're just a chapter that doesn't get reread. Growth turns the page without looking back. It's not about pretending to be okay. It's about actually becoming okay. It's not about faking strength. It's about building it in silence. Toxic people don't know how to process your transformation because it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's consistent. They don't notice it right away. But over time, your detachment becomes real. Your standards rise. Your circle tightens. Your values sharpen. And suddenly, the tactics they once used, gaslighting, guilt, manipulation, you've changed the language of your life and they no longer speak it. There's a kind of strength that doesn't scream. It simply shows up in the way you live, the way you love yourself, the way you no longer engage. You post less, you react less, you explain less. You let your evolution do the talking. And though they may mock it, dismiss it, or even try to sabotage it, they're still watching. They're confused by your peace, unsettled by your confidence, baffled by your silence, because it means you're not waiting for them anymore. You've moved on, not just physically, but energetically. And they can feel that shift even in your absence. Your glow up isn't just appearance, it's alignment. It's emotional, mental, and spiritual growth that can't be faked. You start attracting better experiences, healthier people, and more fulfilling goals. Your life starts to reflect the love you give yourself. And the toxic person, they see it. They may not say it, but they notice the changes. They feel the distance. And they know they're no longer a part of your narrative. That's where the confusion lives, in your progress. In the realization that they no longer influence the story. You've changed the genre. You're writing a new ending. The best part about evolving is that it doesn't require permission. You don't need validation to heal. You don't need acknowledgement to grow. You rise because it's your time. You elevate because staying the same hurts more than change ever will. You stop chasing people who drain you. You stop tolerating conversations that disrespect your intelligence. And most of all, you stop shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. Growth becomes your form of resistance, your soft revolution, the one thing they can't control, manipulate, or reverse. So when a toxic person tries to come back, remember who you've become. Remember the nights you cried, the boundaries you built, the peace you protected. Remember how far you've come in silence. Don't open the door to confusion just because it knocks with familiar hands. Growth doesn't beg to be seen. It lives in how you carry yourself. And the person you are now, they wouldn't even recognize her. Not because you've changed everything, but because you finally chose yourself. And that choice, that evolution, that's the ultimate confusion to someone who thought you'd never leave.